Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, cowboys, sexy aliens and disappointing horror. It's my weekly wrap-up. So it's been a bit of a weird reading week for me. I felt like I hadn't finished that many books, but when I looked at Goodreads, I've actually finished 7 things this week, and I think I've felt like I've been in a bit of a reading funk. There was one book I started that I just couldn't get on with and ended up not continuing with, and work has been super busy this week. The weather's been really hot and muggy here in the UK, which hasn't helped. So I think I've felt like I've not been reading that much or not been reading productively. But actually, as I say, I've done okay. So yeah, 7 books finished this week. My totals for the month so far are I finished 20 books, so doing quite nicely. That does include manga, but I've had 27 books come in, so I'm not managing to achieve my goal of some kind of equilibrium between books in and books out. So yeah, 27 books in, and I did have one day this week when I had 3 parcels arrive with the postman, which was really lovely. 2 of them were gifts from people. One was a book I'd bought. But it was a very nice day. It's a nice day, isn't it, when the postman comes and he's got books for you. When he's got 3 packages of books, it's even better. But yeah, I need to try and rein in my buying again. I have bought quite a few Kindle books this week as well, all like cheap 99p ones, but I need to try and get back out of that habit again. So I've got 7 books to talk to you about today that I finished, and then I will all do the kind of normal thing of talking about what's been on the channel and what's coming on the channel in the week ahead. So let's start with Westerns then. As it is June on the Range, after all, the Western reading event created by Michael Coburn. So I've continued reading this Elmore Leonard Complete Western Stories collection, which is a lot of fun, albeit I'm behind where I should be. So my aim is to read, on average, 1 story a day. There's 30 stories in this book. I'm only at story 10, so I need to try and get a few under my belt this weekend to catch up. Also read, I actually finished it this morning, The Sackett Brand by Louis L'Amour. So one of Michael's kind of guidelines for June on the Range is that you should read 1 Louis L'Amour book and 1 Zane Grey book. And I've managed that this week. So I'll talk about the Zane Grey in a minute. So The Sackett Brand by Louis L'Amour, very short book. It's like 120 pages, and he doesn't waste a word. Louis L'Amour, he was so skilled at what he was doing. He tells a very gripping story. So this is about there's a number of books in this series about the Sackett family, but you don't need to read them in order. This is, I think, it's either book 6 or book 10. I can't remember which. It originally came out in 1965. But it was just great. So one of the Sacketts gets kind of waylaid by some bad guys. His all his belongings and his wife get taken, and his wife ends up getting killed. And it's about him trying to get revenge on the people who've done it, basically. So whilst they are also hunting him and trying to take him out. So it was just a really gripping adventure story. I enjoyed it a lot. The Zane Grey I read, so I have been reading for a while, so I have mentioned it in other videos recently, was The Lone Star Ranger, which I was listening to as an audiobook, which I finished this week. It was a lot of fun. There were definitely some problems with it. The plotting was a bit weird at times, and it was incredibly racist at times as well, which is not good. But it was nevertheless a really gripping adventure story. So about this guy who basically gets involved in an altercation at the beginning of the book and ends up killing the other guy, and thereafter becomes an outlaw. The book is very much in 2 halves. So the first half is him as an outlaw, meeting other outlaws and trying to figure out how to live a life on the run. But in the second half of the book, he gets recruited to be a Texas Ranger, and it's about him going after this evil kind of cattle baron guy. It was incredibly gripping and exciting at times. I did have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, the period racism in that book was quite extreme at times, particularly about Mexican characters. So anyway, I've achieved Michael's suggestion of a Louis L'Amour and Zane Grey. I have read at least one other Western this week, albeit a slightly strange one. So that was Zombies Over Yonder by Stephen Mertz, which I talked about a bit in the video I did last Sunday, where I talk about trashy books. So Stephen Mertz, a very prolific author of kind of men's adventure books and things like that. He's writing this series of Westerns about a couple. I forget their names now, but their surname is Blaze. So a couple of kind of gunfighters. In this book, they go to investigate this silver mine, which is where the evil count who's running the silver mine has got what is apparently zombie slave labour working in the mine. So it was a very silly mixture of kind of horror and Western, but it was really entertaining, very competently written, just a lot of fun, some really good action sequences, some quite amusing sequences as well. So yeah, I enjoyed that one a lot. So on a slightly more literary note, also read Cry of the Owl by Patricia Highsmith this week. So as I've said on the channel before, I'm doing a read through of all of Patricia Highsmith's novels with Anne from the channel Anne Novella. So this was a slightly disappointing one. So the beginning 2/3 was great. The final third was a bit of a letdown. So it's about this slightly strange guy who starts a relationship with a slightly strange woman. So it starts with him like being a peeping Tom and peering through her window, and she decides to invite him in, and they start a relationship. So it was a bit weird, but it was gripping because you wanted to know where it was going. But at the end, it just kind of fell apart a bit. So a slightly disappointing one from Highsmith, who's normally really, really reliable. So I promised Sexy Aliens in the intro to this video. So the Sexy Alien book I read was a book called Hannibal by an author called Tasha Black. Now the full title of this book, I'm going to see if I can remember it without referring to the notes. It was Hannibal, Stargazer, Mystery Brides, and then brackets, Intergalactic Dating Agency. I think that was it. So I talked about this in the video I did last Tuesday. So I did a review of it for that. I'm going to be doing in the run up to Garb August, which is my reading event in August, where we focus on reading trashy books. Every Tuesday I'm going to be doing a review of a trashy book or trashy series of books. So the first of those was a review of this book Hannibal, which was a kind of strange, slightly humorous, smutty book about this woman who starts a relationship with a hunky alien, basically. So yeah, it wasn't all that, but it was interesting to read it, even if I didn't particularly enjoy it. Okay, on to the disappointing horror then. So two horror books read this week. So the first was Garth Marenghi's Terror Tome, which isn't really a horror novel. It's more of a comic novel. So if you don't know the character Garth Marenghi is the star of a short-lived British TV show from the early 2000s called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. And the concept for Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is that Garth Marenghi is a kind of slightly trashy horror author who writes kind of very overblown horror novels about animals attacking and things like that. And the concept is he's written the script for this TV show Dark Place, which he also appears in as the lead character. The show is very, very funny. It's an affectionate spoof of kind of trashy horror. It's got a great cast who do a really good job of keeping it very, very funny. The book I thought was slightly disappointing. It does authentically feel like a Garth Marenghi book. So the idea is that this is 3 Garth Marenghi novels or novellas in a collection. So they are supposed to have been written by Garth Marenghi. And at first I was, it was funny. I was enjoying it, but it does wear thin fairly quickly. The stories, all of which kind of riff on well-known horror novels. So there's one that kind of spoofs the Dark Half by Stephen King, for example, and there's one that kind of rips off Hellraiser. So they're reasonably entertaining, but they're not good enough to really keep you gripped. And the humour, whilst it was definitely quite funny at times, I think it needs that great cast that the TV show had to really make it work. So yeah, I was slightly disappointed by that. Then also read something very different from the horror genre. So The Summer I Died by Ryan C. Thomas, which is a book I read for my Disturbing Books project. It was one that a few people have recommended. And again, I didn't really enjoy this, to be honest with you. So it's about two young guys in the States who are friends who basically they're out in the woods at night, kind of mucky about, and they hear this woman being attacked and go to investigate and discover this kind of horrible serial killer guy. And it's, basically a survival horror thing thereafter, of them trying to survive being attacked by him. I really liked the first fifth of this book. So the first fifth of the book is basically just the build up, and it's about these two guys and their friendship in, kind of small town rural America. And that part of the book I actually thought was quite well done. Once it gets into the horror, I just felt like I wasn't seeing anything I haven't seen loads of times before. So it was, there was nothing new there. It's very graphic at times, but yeah, it was a bit disappointing. I will do a full review of this one, I think. So that will probably go up this week or next week. And then I'm currently reading a book that wasn't on my TBR for the month, but which the author sent me ages ago, so I'm pleased to have managed to find time for it. That's the Auschwitz Detective by Jonathan Dunsky. So I'm actually listening to the audio book of this one. So it's from a series called the Adam Lapid series. I think it's technically book 6 in that series, but chronologically it's the first. So it's kind of his kind of origin story, if you like. And it's, as the title suggests, it's about a guy in Auschwitz. Trying to survive, but also trying to solve a mystery. So far, it's really good. It's engaging and very, very readable, but doesn't, it certainly doesn't shy away from the horrors of Auschwitz. So yeah, so far I'm definitely really gripped by it, and looking forward to seeing what Jonathan Dunsky does with the story. So in terms of channel stuff then, you've had a few different things this week. So I did a kind of top 5 summer reads, recommending books you might want to take on your summer holiday. I've done a few reviews this week. So I did a review of a new thriller called Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. I did a review of The Pillow Man, a play by Martin McDonagh. And also, as noted, a review of the sexy alien book Hannibal. So yeah, check those out if you haven't seen them already. And also, as I said earlier, I did a review. I did a video about trashy books. So kind of introducing the concept of Garb August, my reading event, which will be happening in August, and just kind of talking about the pleasures of reading trashier books. And then in the week ahead, a few reviews for you. So I'm going to do a video about the Edge series of westerns, which I've been reading since I started the channel. My very first video on the channel actually was a review of the first book in that series. So I'm up to book 18 now. So for my trashy book series, I'm going to do a video about that whole series, or the ones I've read so far anyway. I'm also going to do a review of Lone Women by Victor Laval, which was a really excellent book that I read a couple of weeks ago. And a video for Father's Day. I'm going to do a video about dad books. So the kind of books that stereotypically dads are supposed to enjoy. And then I will also be doing, I think, if I can come up with a top 10, my top 10 books of 2023 so far. So I hope you found that interesting. As always with these weekly videos, let me know what you've been reading this week. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.